Hello, everybody, and welcome to our July 2025 astrology forecast. As always, I'm delighted to be joined by our esteemed faculty member, Celeste Brooks. So, thank you so much for joining us again today. And how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful today.
Wonderful. Glad to hear that. I'm ready for a vacation. I know we were talking about that before the recording.
Me too. We're both going on vacation next week and we need it. And I encourage everyone to take time away. The energy is so intense and so many things are happening if you're paying attention to the news that taking a nervous system reset is so healthy and helpful at this time with the North Node in Pisces, where there's so
Mm.
much confusion. We don't know what's real, what's not real. And the South Node in Virgo, it feels like systems we could rely on are getting a little shaky or non-existent. So we can always become back embodied is something you can think about.
Absolutely. That's wonderful advice. Maybe just to disconnect, take a vacation, and maybe turn everything off for a while and disconnect. Wonderful. So, before we get into the details of each week, Celeste, what are your thoughts as an overview for the month of July?
Well, we're recording this early because of our vacation. So on Juneteenth, so we just had a last quarter moon in Pisces. So we don't know what happened since then or what the event for the Cancer new moon was. But some things that we've been seeing is that there's a lot of collective energy of aggression and upheaval. We had the big Jupiter in Cancer square Saturn and Aries transit that coincided on the same day with Mars square Uranus. So, Jupiter square Saturn, these times are known throughout history because these are the social planets that come together every 20 years and really speak to what are new starts around politics, culture, everything related to societies. And then about 5 years later, they meet every 20 years. So about 5 years later, they're in square. And we had just had the third of three squares. And Cancer is a sign of homelands and nationalism. So Jupiter, that energy being amplified. Square Saturn and Aries, which has to do with limitations and the hardship of war. And it's square Saturn and Neptune. So we just had this big parade that the president turned the Army's 250-year parade. It coincided with his birthday, and it was a flop. So that was a big thing. So this was turning point energy where people are seeing, as well as the leadership, that, and we're seeing this all over the world, that Saturn in Aries is known for people feeling like their leaders or their leadership are ineffective or are going to extremes. And we're having a lot of chaos in, especially in California, where the ICE raids are grabbing people from their workplaces, from their homes. And Mars square Uranus on the same day as the parade, Mars in Leo, square Uranus in Taurus, there were worldwide, but nationwide protests in the United States where 11 million people came out with the No King's Day. So Jupiter is royalty, Leo is royalty, so it's Saturn rejects and Uranus wants freedom. So the energy and the astrology was absolutely on point for that. Now, unfortunately, Israel decided to attack Iran. And so they are in a war. And coinciding with that Mars square Uranus, Uranus rules breakthroughs. And Iran broke through the Iron Dome. So we are seeing destruction in both Iran and Israel. And the cause of the attack is being said for nuclear what to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. And this is one of the big transits of the year. Mars in Leo Israel's has a Leo moon, so the people opposite Pluto in Aquarius. We had that twice this year so far, and now we've seen what that's about as Mars squares Uranus. So I hope this made sense. I just kind of went off that we're in this time of amplified tensions between all over the world. And but we're seeing people and groups rise up trying to keep heads cooler in some places or fight against perceived authoritarianism or government overreach. And it's happening all over the world. There's all kinds of upheaval.
As you say, the astrology is so on point with the Mars square, the Uranus. We're having the Uranus at the critical degree all the way into July. So I think my overview for July is both a collective and a personal sense of putting the foot on the brakes. And maybe that's a good thing for the collective. We're going to have the Saturn, the Neptune, and Mercury stationing to go retrograde. So hopefully we have this sense of maybe pulling ourselves collectively back from the brink. As we go retrograde, we're walking ourselves back. On a personal level, we can talk about Saturn retrograde, even though being a social planet, about revisiting our structures in our lives. Maybe we have to relook at our commitments and our responsibilities. But certainly on the collective, I hope this is a sense of pulling ourselves back from the brink and just reassessing what actually we're doing collectively and moving away, hopefully, from disaster.
I hope so. Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, and you'll know when you're watching this what happened at the new moon in Cancer. And something that's very interesting about that is on June 25th, the day before Jupiter goes Cazimi. So it meets the sun and has a rebirth. So there's some nature of something that maybe is hidden that is suddenly revealed, or that there's death and rebirth symbology. And then we have this new moon in Cancer conjunct Jupiter, which feels very abundant in a lot of ways. So hopefully you can have a sense of inner abundance and like excitement about what you want to grow in your own life. Cancer is a very fertile sign, and Jupiter expanding that fertility. Now, and there's an interesting chart pattern that reverberates throughout the lunar cycle where Pluto in Aquarius. So there's going to be, and we're seeing it, the transformation of societies as well as technology. We found out in the US that tech companies like Palantir and Meta and something else. They've been they're like colonels in the army or something like that. Some of the leaders of tech companies are being, and it's like, what? But this is Pluto in Aquarius. The power within technology companies is expanding, and Pluto will be at 3 degrees at the new moon. And it's going to be King Kunk's Mars in Virgo at 3 degrees on one side, and King Kunk's the new moon in Jupiter on the other side, making this yod, which is a finger of God. So it's a chart pattern which suggests you've been pointed at. And so you can think about, how do you want to be empowered to, that's the Pluto, to grow and expand what you want to bring into your life. And the Mars in Virgo, what are the step-by-step actions you're going to be taking?
Wonderful point. And going back to your point about Uranus at the critical degree, Uranus at the critical degree lasts for a couple of weeks. Now, we're recording this on June 19th, so we're not going to know if anything else unexpected happens, but it kind of ties in with what you're saying before on the collective, with Israel striking Iran, the whole Middle East in volatility and uproar. So we're still going to have this energy as we go into the first week of July. And of course, this is a national holiday in the United States. And I like what you're saying about the Venus connection to Uranus. Now, we can see this connection both in a skilled and an unskilled sense. In a skilled sense, on a personal level, this could be a time for new, exciting relationships, something a bit out of the box. If you go to a family event and you meet somebody new, this is a great time to try something different. If you already are in a relationship, maybe, yeah, try something new, try something more exciting. But on the unskilled side of this, of course, over the past few years, family tensions have been quite high. This could be a sense of, sudden breakups in relationships, people not seeing eye to eye and just going, you know what, suddenly just saying, I've had enough of whoever it might be. And as you said, Celeste, when you have Neptune stationing to go retrograde, anytime a planet stations to go retrograde or direct, it's usually one of the loudest planets in the sky. So if we make the decisions around this time, if we're looking for, say, a new relationship, we might have a sense of rose-tinted glasses. The picture might not be very clear with Neptune and illusions. As you said, Celeste, watch out for maybe overdoing things in terms of alcohol or any other substances with Neptune in the picture. And what's interesting, as we go from Venus in her home sign in fixed Earth, we're moving into a very different flavor for Venus in Gemini. This is a Venus that really enjoys novelty. It's a mutable sign, so it likes to change things up a bit. So again, it just ties into that sense of excitement, trying something new or somebody new. And also, it's a Mercury ruled sign, so this might have an intellectual component. Maybe we prefer to maybe go around and see a museum or just do something that pleasures the mind as we get into Gemini. So those are my thoughts for the 4th of July.
Yeah, this could be great. A couple could be like talking at a 4th of July party and just say, oh, let's go on a road trip this weekend. That could be something you're saying, well, Venus is in Taurus and having this bright idea or this awakening that you need something different in your relationship. And then, yeah, and then you go. Or somebody may say, I want to date other people. That could be Venus and Gemini. It's like, yeah, that you find out somebody has two lovers where somebody else thought they just had one. Yeah,
Ah,
it's
with the
interesting.
duality of Gemini, yeah, that could be an issue as well.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
and currency is also a Taurus topic, and Venus rules resources. So there could be some big stories about banking or cryptocurrency has been coming up. There was a big seizure just yesterday of cryptocurrency from scam artists who had been, I think it's called pig butchering. So that could be something related to this. But Venus is going to Venus, so there's probably likely going to be pleasurable things and lovely things, but there's something surprising. A party takes on an excited turn, and with Neptune there can be confusion. So this is really important. And Neptune in Aries is a little explosive. On the day Jupiter in Cancer squared Neptune in Aries, one of Elon Musk's rockets blew up in Texas before it even left the ground. So keep that in mind. Be extra careful with fireworks because yeah, there's confusion, energy that could lead to a problem where Venus and Gemini, someone's saying, where are my fingers or where are her fingers? And they're never to be seen again. So be careful.
Wonderful advice. And I like you talked about the financial component. And I always say with a Venus connection to Uranus, be careful of any impulse purchases as well. Something that might catch your eye with Neptune in the picture might not be very clear in terms of what you want. So just be mindful of any impulse purchases, I think, at this time.
And scam artists. Yeah. You meet someone at a party telling you about this great thing that you could invest in, and all they need is $15,000, blah, blah, blah. I would be very careful to bet that. Very careful.
Great advice. Absolutely. Okay, Celeste, into week 2. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's very interesting and this is a big kind of energy shift. Saturn and Neptune, and we're starting to get used to it, but it's still kind of new, have moved from the end of Pisces into the beginning of Aries. So whenever a planet enters a new sign, it comes up first against Saturnian restrictions. Now, a sextile is harmonious energy. It gives an opportunity. So Venus in Gemini, sextile Saturn in Aries. There can be something about communication that gets leaves someone feeling a little alone, like if you found out your lover has another lover besides you, that could be feelings of loneliness and anger kind of things. There could be, yeah, communication could be, you could have like a big conversation that's important to have, and it could go one way or the other. It could be like you come to a reality or crystallize your commitment with Saturn, but with that Neptune retrograde, you could be feeling a little bit, a sense of disillusionment or something like that in terms of relationships. And it could be something with a sibling Gemini. Um, there's some kind of limitations or some kind of breakdown. What are you seeing with this? Before I go on, I've been looking at this transit, and it's going to be something in the news. There's going to be a big event that really speaks to this Venus Uranus, and then changing signs, and then sextile Saturn and Neptune, something big about relationships, and potentially on the world, there could be a breakdown of partnerships in terms of countries and things like that.
Oh, that's really interesting. I think on a personal level, of course, we're looking at sextile as being opportunities.
Yeah,
So on a personal level, with Venus sextile in Saturn, Venus sextile in Neptune, there's an opportunity here for a bit of escapism. As Celeste said before, if you're going off on a road trip, this falls on a
yeah.
Sunday, so it might be a nice weekend to get out. And again, just that sense of opportunity in terms of our relationships. But that's going to be quite interesting, Celeste, on the collective, if we see some of those breakdowns in countries and relations.
And Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini, and Gemini is the trickster. And I forgot, this is something I've been thinking about, is that there could be Uranus going into Gemini. One of the things that could show up, I mean, Uranus disrupts, Gemini rules communications, Uranus awakens us to things. There could be some blockbuster reporting about relationships between countries or businesses or tech something that makes big news. And I have been one of the things I'm hoping that comes up, or I think could come up from the signal gate, that there could be other communications that the reporter kept back, maybe, that come out. So prepare for some kind of blockbuster news. When Uranus enters Gemini, there is going to be something that catches our attention, that is maybe a scientific advance, could be something that comes with Uranus and Gemini, about communication, transportation, but there could also be protests. This could be a lot of people in the streets. I see Uranus and Gemini, and we're seeing this happening. All of the stress of the financial upheaval, of the escalating violence, of people losing jobs, the people being snatched off the street. I mean, all of this stuff is having an impact on people's minds. And we're seeing more and more people. Just yesterday, there was some woman who really lost it on a flight that's getting a lot of attention. And we're seeing people just losing it in some times. And with that Venus trine Pluto retrograde, the trines are smooth and easy flowing. This could be something where there's some communication that in a relationship that really leads to some shadow work, or there's some secrets revealed around some kind of partnership that could be coming up. And I could and it feels like the government, because it's a government or big business because we're having a full moon in Capricorn where the sun is in Cancer, which has something to do with homelands or families, things like that, or eugenic stuff could be something that's coming up. And with the moon in Capricorn, a sign of governments, big business, discipline, duty, the elderly, all of that kind of stuff. And then Saturn stations retrograde, and retrogrades pull back the tape so that we can see what's beneath it all. And Saturn is ruling the full moon, and it's about to station retrograde. So I really feel like a blockbuster news story is going to be part of what we're seeing this week.
Wonderful point. And not only Uranus entering Gemini is probably the blockbuster event of the month of July, I would say it's one of the blockbuster events for the year because we've not had Uranus entering Gemini since 1941. And of course, collectively, that wasn't a great time for the world from 1941 all the way through. So that's going to be quite interesting on the collective when we're talking about conflict and wars. Of course, with Neptune and Saturn in Aries, we go back historically, we see the American Civil War all the way back. So I do worry about this time and what might happen. But it's interestingly going back to your point in terms of technology. We've talked about Pluto, but Uranus entering Gemini. I mean, this is only really dipping its toes into Gemini until November. Then it's going to retrograde and eventually go back into Pisces. But we're having all these talks about AI and how, they're saying maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, even they'll be replacing many, many jobs. So, talking about Celeste, your point about the collective angst in terms of finances, all of these different components, are we going to have to, with Saturn stationed into retrograde, think about how we restructure society? Because if we get to a point where AI pretty much takes over all the jobs that needs to be done, then we need to really think about how our economic system is divided up. Are we going to go to a place where we have just the fraction of 1% controlling everything, like a techno oligarchy? Or are we going to have to really think about societies restructuring themselves to make it more equitable? Maybe a Pluto and Aquarius theme of equality to a certain degree, but we're going to come to a crunch point where we can't keep going on as we have because all of these new technologies, AI, this is really going to shake up our world. And certainly this is going to be Uranus and Gemini for the big picture over 7 years as Uranus eventually gets into Gemini full stop after the retrograde motion. So this is going to be a very, very interesting time. And this might just give us a short window with this Uranus entering Gemini of what might come ahead in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. So you can expect this week we'll start to see some things about like shocking messages, communication breakdowns, like digital systems collapsing, at least temporarily. Viral misinformation is another one that we may see coming up with Uranus and Gemini.
Okay,
Yeah.
into week 3. Celeste, your thoughts?
Ah, so it's so interesting. So since Saturn entered the sign of Aries, it has been traveling within a degree of Neptune in Aries. And so these two are traveling as a unit. Saturn rules structures, Neptune dissolves them in a sign, a fire sign, a sign that rules conflict. So structures are dissolving through conflict. It feels like with Saturn being in fall in this sign, it's it's the authority can take on really, it can feel like there's excessive things the authority is doing in order to maintain control and propaganda about why we should do what we do. Neptune rules propaganda, this illusions of why we need to be in conflict and why these hard things need to be happening. And it's really close, and the moon is in Aries. So they're almost conjunct. They are not officially conjunct until February 20th of 2026. So on 0 degrees of Aries, so there'll be some big event then, but there's really pay attention to what we're seeing with them both being retrograde. Information from the past about deception and a deceptive attack, and it doesn't need to be a violent attack. It's an attack on something. It could be an attack on systems is coming into our conscious awareness that impacts a lot of people because the moon in Aries rules the people. And then you see Mercury stationing retrograde on that world point. So what is being revealed? And it could also be part of this as well, because we need to remember that the South Node is in Virgo. So the nodes speak to the bigger story, and Virgo rules systems, it rules health. We're thinking about farmland. You may be hearing stories about how excessive heat, Saturn and Neptune hardship, and expanding excessive heat is causing problem for crops or something. Could be something that's happening. I talked about this Mercury retrograde when I did a forecast last year about it being a raisin in the sun was the name I gave this transit. So I could see us having really, really excessive heat. I really recommend staying off rides at at entertainment parks, like Six Flags around July 17th, because when a planet stations, I could just see people with Mercury retrograde station sextile Venus, like on a roller coaster stuck at the top. Maybe even, well, at least it's no Uranus is not that active, but Uranus would make you feel like you're upside down sitting on that thing. So
A wonderful point, and I think we talked about this in the previous month, especially with Saturn not in great shape in Aries in its fall and stationing to go retrograde, especially at this point. Maybe that sense of self-sufficiency and self-sustainability. And what I've done recently is we've started here at my home to start growing our own food. So we've just started with a couple of tomatoes that have just come ripened, basil, just different herbs and things like that. So I think it's a good time, especially with, as you're saying, we've got a climate breakdown. We might have, the scorched earth effect coming into summer. So this is a great time collectively. It's a social planet, maybe to start thinking about if you have the means to start producing your own food. And this is maybe something to keep in mind. And as we get into week 3, I feel like it's a week of frustrations. We have bar Pluto, all of our retrograde planets are in fire signs. Now, for me, out of all the elements, having retrograde planets in fire signs is usually the most frustrating. We can think if you're people who are watching this, if you've got a heavy fire chart, a lot of planets in either Aries, Sagittarius, Leo, the fire needs to expand. There's an outward polarity. It needs freedom. Like air signs to a certain degree, fire needs freedom. So when we have these planets retrograde, having that inward fire become more internalized can lead to a sense of frustration. And this might be happening both collectively and individually. So for me, just to watch out for any frustrations that might be building up with yourself or any family members, partners, things of that nature, and just trying to find an outlet for all of this fire, because it's usually one of the most frustrating times, especially with the element of fire.
absolutely. Yeah. And so make sure July 17th through August 11th, you honor Mercury's retrograde, and realize that fire. Mercury rules communication. So watch what you're saying. And with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, how can you be your own authority in terms of holding yourself to ideals that you feel you want to exemplify? But be extra careful with communications, written and oral around this time, because it can come back to bite you. I mean, this is when someone's going to send an email talking about Susie in accounting, and they're going to accidentally CC the wrong person. And oh, with Saturn being involved, the consequences can be serious. So retrogrades give us an opportunity to slow down, to go inward, rethink, revisit, revise, whatever, all the RE words, reconnect. You may have some exes falling, sliding into your DMs and all of this kind of stuff. Mercury, Leo is fun energy though. So I think this could be, it could be fun, but people are going to be extra combative. So just be aware of that. Retrogrades can bring conflicts, disagreements, um, delays, the collapse of something that was contemplated. So you could have been like thinking you were going to do X and then you do Y. Now there's going to be something on the global level that's going to be interesting, I think, because Mercury Mercury in Cancer sextiled Venus in Taurus at the full moon June 11th, the Sagittarius full moon. So some kind of connection around that time may be revealed. Something done under the surface may be revealed around this time with some kind of communication, a partnership gets revealed because retrogrades pull back the tape. So we're getting information and potentially about conflict. It could be something about, and I'm seeing people talk about it online. What was the pre-agreed deal with between the US and Israel about Iran and the nuclear program going on and that attack that happened June 12th, against where Israel attacked Iran and killed like 10 nuclear scientists and all of this kind of stuff. There may be information coming out about what went on underneath the scenes at this time. Yeah, that's something I'm feeling. But Mercury retrograde sextile Venus and Gemini, you may be walking down the street and bump into someone you went to grade school with. Gemini rules early education. Mercury retrograde, hey girl, blah, 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 or hey, Jamie, whatever. This could be like a really fun thing where you bump into someone you haven't seen in ages, you make plans to get together, and it could be this could be really nice energy as well, as long as you slow down. Now, Sun square Chiron. Sun in Cancer square Chiron in Aries. That's going to be interesting. Chiron is the wounded healer. The Sun is authority, bosses. Yeah. Yeah, the boss may be talking about headcount reductions or something like that. Aries rules the head. Yeah, things like that could be coming up.
Wonderful. Okay, into week 4. Celeste, your thoughts?
Leo season begins. I love Leo season. This is where the sun is at home, where it can do what it does with ease, which is bring joyful energy, self-confidence, fun. Leo is a sign that has associations with children, with play, with joy, also with pride, loyalty, things like that. Yeah, I think this could be I love the fact that the sun is moving into Leo. Now it could be really, 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 really hot. So some things Leo rules. We can think about performers, royalty. It has associations with the golden child archetype. Some things you can think about are generosity. How can you be more generous? Maybe helping people who need some help. Confidence. Now it's going to bring the drama with the, uh, 5 A's at the end of drama. And we know this because Mars is conjunct the South Node at this time at 20 Virgo. So what is being sucked away? Be mindful of the actions you take because they could have the South Node is a sign. The South Node is a drain. It's a cosmic vacuum cleaner. So if you get in a conflict around this time, make sure you know what you're doing because it could really be a little bit, the consequences could be severe. Whenever I see the South Node and planets stationing on there. Oh, be careful about falling if you have something right around 20 Virgo. The South Node can suggest falling from a height. So just keep that in mind. Dog fights, keep in mind if you're at a dog park or something like that and there's an agitated dog, Mars rules dogs. Mars and Mercury rule dogs, but Mars, when you think about dogs for protection, so keep that in mind. And people are going to be hair triggered tempers is going to be something that we're going to be witnessing at this time. And before the sun enters Leo, it's at 29 degrees of Cancer. So that last degree of crisis and decay. So emotional feelings can lead to some dramatic outburst or something like that, or dramatic action. Yeah, and Venus is squaring the nodes. So the node squares are karmic crossroads. Venus rules relationships. And this could be a relationship in Gemini with a neighbor or a friend. It doesn't necessarily have to be a love partner, where if you get real critical, South Node in Virgo, or perfectionistic, or obsessive about something, there could be some kind of breakdown. You think about Venus square the North Node, which is an amplifier. We want to aim towards the North Node in Pisces. Can we be more compassionate and generous? There may be something where people are suffering some kind of natural disastery thing with all of that fire energy. Like if there was a fire somewhere where you want to Mars in Virgo, like go in your closet and pull out some things that you no longer need in order to donate. Venus, like give somebody a blessing who's going through difficult times. Yeah. And the Leo sun is square Uranus and Gemini. Sun, this could be really, if you're going to a party around here, this could be like the most like interactive, potential for fun. Now, maybe you're playing board games or some kind of tennis or like some kind of sport or something with Venus squaring Mars, because that's energy for competition amongst partners. Yeah, so watch out for getting into it with your loved ones, because Venus in Gemini, square Mars and Virgo could be a really ugly fight where some things are said that are not easily taken back. With Mercury retrograde in Leo, fighting over children could be something that is going on. And you're going to realize the consequences soon after. July 24th may be a difficult day for some people psychologically when your conscious mind, the sun, it's tried Saturn, and like you're in Aries, you're thinking about what did I do? The consequences for impulsivity or conflict are higher with Saturn and Aries. So that is something to think about. Now, there's probably going to be some conflict on the world stage that we see here with Venus square Mars. Venus was peace, Mars rules war. They're intense, an intense square. What are you seeing, Callum?
Yeah, I think for week four, we certainly have a lot of energy in the skies. We have Sun going into its ultimate dignity in the home sign in Leo. And I think if we look at the chart, this is going to make the element of fire the most dominant element. So, on the positive, on the skilled end, as you've been saying, Celeste, maybe a great time if you take a vacation at this point for parties, getting out, having some fun. I would probably say in if you're in, maybe in a long-term relationship, this actually might be a good week to go off and have a vacation with friends, maybe rather than
Don't talk to each other.
vacation with friends, maybe with and not with partners. Because as you said, with the Venus square Mars, there could be some, tension, some conflict. I mean, that's not always romantic relationships. That could be platonic relationships as well. But if that's something that you do in your relationships, I would certainly say this is a great week to have a road trip with your friends, maybe school friends or university, college friends, and maybe, and enjoy that rather than more intimate close network partners because we're getting out of Cancer season here. We're into Leo, which is it's the boldness of the sun, things that I want to do. It's not kind of the Cancerian we, the kin, family, and friends. So I would say either do something by yourself or go with friends. Maybe have maybe a break from relationships if they're getting a little bit with a bit of tension.
Yes, watch out for, yeah, for really selfish behavior or uh, grandstanding, arrogance. These could be shadow Leo energies, or bossing people around could lead to a conflict. And you could have a real it like if you have like some difficulties around this time, the new moon in Leo at 2 Leo could be a rocky, hard one. This is not an easy full, new moon. Not at all, because it's opposite Pluto. They're both at 2 degrees. So it's very plutonic, which can bring up power struggles, which can bring up, which can bring up, yeah, it can bring up a lot of intensity. Like even we may be becoming aware of some kind of, and Pluto's retrograde, so it may be something that happened in the past, but this is a really, and we're waking up to some news that's very intense, and there could be a big conflict going on. Now, this is really close. This is a really important new moon for, I think, Israel for one. Their moon is at 4 Leo, so there could be stories, and that Pluto's in their fourth house of land, stories of conflict there, as well as Ukraine, the president of Ukraine. I'm really interested to see what's going on with him around that time, Zelensky, because his Mars is at 0 degrees of Leo. So this full moon is really, I mean, I keep saying new moon, full moon. This new moon is right near his Mars. So what is the new start that he's experiencing with the opposition to Pluto at this time? Yeah, what is being seeded? And this is a time for you to set intentions for yourself as well with um, great time to do some shadow work about how you let your light shine, or the lack thereof. If you're lacking in confidence, or you're holding yourself back from achieving the things you really want to achieve because you're concerned about how other people, Aquarius, are going to perceive what you're offering, it's a really great time to really confront yourself and think about, how can I move past my limitations and build my confidence muscle? Because as the world is changing, we are going to have to be really to thrive. It's going to take more get up and go and gumption than maybe it did 10, 15 years ago.
Absolutely, great points. And I wonder around July 24th with Sun leader, the opposition to Pluto, whether we might see a leader getting into trouble or being removed in some way. That might be quite interesting. And of course, any transits, it's not always on the day that something is happening, because with transits, we know we have a day or two when we're applying towards the aspects and a day or two after. So maybe around this time, we might see something in the news regarding a leader being removed. So this might be quite interesting as we go through.
And you know what? That Mars, Sun enters Leo, Mars conjunct the South Node could be ripping a leader out of their seat. And the midheaven of Iran is right around that. The Iran,
Ah,
I keep calling it, the midheaven of Iran is right around that point. And the midheaven of Benjamin not Netanyahu is right around that point. Hmm.
wow,
Yeah, and that
interesting. Yeah.
squares the president of the United States is Sun.
Mm.
It's actually square his nodes exactly. His north node is in Gemini, and south node is in Sagittarius. So there could be there could be a story about him as well. And Virgo is a sign of health, so it could be a leader somewhere suffers some health issue or yeah,
Very interesting. We'll have to
something.
see.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll see what happens.
into our final week, week 5. Celeste, what are your thoughts?
Venus sextile Chiron and Aries, Venus in Gemini. This could be you could have a breakthrough in talk therapy where it's healing. I mean, Chiron is no joke. The wound can cut deep, but if you do the work, the healing can be incredible, where you see and realize some old wounds that like really go back into that childhood time frame, the way they were seeded. And it could be, I feel like this can be really, really healing. But it also could be, it could be Chiron can always wound. So there could be a little upset in a relationship, and then Chiron stations to go retrograde. So yeah, just be aware if you're feeling a little emotionally tender at this time. I would recommend journaling with this energy. And then there could be talky, talky, talky. Somebody says something that hurts somebody's feelings. Venus moves into Cancer. The tears start flowing. So just be aware they're moving from this air, this detached, kind of emotionally detached energy, into water, into Cancer, where feeling really, um, the feeling body is activated. Venus in Cancer is beautiful. It can be very romantic. Yeah, somebody may come home with a beautiful bouquet of flowers or pouring you a bath or something like that. Yeah, and then we have the Mercury Cazimi, Sun Mercury Cazimi at 9 Leo. Cazimis are really interesting times where there's this death and rebirth symbology as a planet, and Mercury is backing into the sun, where there can be some kind of new start, death and rebirth symbolizing there's themes of sitting at the foot of the monarch or the leader and asking for a favor, and the favor will be bequeathed. So, yeah. If like what if you have little kids and one of them comes and asks you for something, you'll probably maybe say yes at this time. Could be. So notice that. It's a great time on this day to be open for divine insights, because you can get great ideas when Mercury and the Sun meet. The thinking mind and the conscious mind come together. But there'll be some story, and maybe we'll find out something with Mercury retrograde, like an expose about a leadership that has a Leo twist on it. Mm. And then Venus is square Saturn and Neptune. That'll be interesting to see how this shows up.
Yeah, that's our preview into August. But very interesting points that you're making. Again, any planet or even asteroid that stations to go direct or retrograde is going to be quite loud in the sky. Again, with Chiron, we could be opening up old wounds. Take a look at your own chart to see where that Chiron, what house that falls in. We might talk about that more as we get to each rising sign, and any connections that Chiron may make to any personal planets that you have might be bringing up old wounds in the area of life that's indicated in your chart. I like what you're saying, Celeste. We're having this Venus who's had its party in Gemini, that mutability, that novelty, having some fun. And as you said, as we get into Cancer, the inward polarity is coming in. We might shed some tears if that Chiron is quite loud in the sky. It's a water sign. And here we're going from maybe partying into wanting to be maybe closer to kin and to family. So whether you're having, nice meals at home with close relations or your own children, things of that nature, yes, we're still in Leo party season, but it might be party season with family when we get to this later stage in July. Wonderful. And oh yeah, the last point on the Kazemi. That's quite interesting. When Mercury goes retrograde into the Cazimi, it's not always as forcibly felt. If you see a Mercury Cazimi when it's direct, but something this might be a nice time to jot any ideas that you might have. We've got Sun, the King, and Leo. Maybe things that you want to do on your agenda. Write things down. That Mercury gets extra power from that Cazimi, so it might be a nice time to again write anything that down that you might want to do for yourself. Wonderful. Well, Celeste, thank you as always for going through the first couple of weeks of the month. Thank you so much. And next, we're going to get into each rising sign. Okay, into our Aries rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
So Aries rising, I encourage you to think about how Saturn and Neptune has already been showing up for you, because I think the moment it went into the sign, you're starting to notice that maybe people are being a little more critical of you, or you're a little like stepping back away from people, or did you, I know an Aries rising who had a little bump to the head, like just notice what's going on or what's being crystallized and clear to you about what long-term goals you want to have succeed and what energy and work you're ready to put into these things. Your chart ruler, Mars, is in your sixth house of things that can go wrong with your health. So with Saturn in your rising sign and Neptune there, I think this is a great time to really caretake your physical body. Because when Saturn comes to your ascendant, that can be a time where you're feeling a little depleted, or your vitality is down. The first house is the house of vitality. The sixth house is a house of things that can go wrong with your health. So actions taken to improve your health, you'll be happy if you do that. And you may be spending time with family can be really something that you feel is really expanding your emotional connection or feelings of joy. Maybe you want to do something to decorate your home with the sun and Jupiter in the fourth house. These are some things I'm thinking about for Aries risings. And maybe scheduling a play date with kids if you have them with Mercury in Leo in your fifth house of children.
Wonderful advice, and I would echo your sentiments in terms of for Aries rising, maybe developing a new health regime if that's something you need to do. As we pointed out, you've got the chart ruler moving through the sixth house whole sign. So this could be a sense of restructuring. We're in the house of health here, maybe start a new exercise regime. And as Celeste saying, especially with Saturn and Neptune is dipping its toes into your first house, we're talking about vitality, especially if you have early degrees of Aries rising. You might have felt that already because this is going to be part of a larger picture. But I'm also getting the sense of work here. In the sixth house, we can also talk about matters of work. With Mars going here, you might be feeling a bit not maybe a sense of being snowed in, maybe have a lot of work to do. And this might be compounded when Uranus dips its toes into your third house whole sign. You might be getting a flood of unexpected emails, a lot of work. Maybe it feels a bit cumbersome for you at this time. So, certainly, as Celeste is saying, pay attention to your health. Pay attention to your everyday routine and adjust where you need to, because that's going to be very important. And I like what you're saying, Celeste, about the home and family life. This might be a nice time, especially with Jupiter. I mean, this is going to be part of a big picture for the year. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer in the fourth house. Maybe you're looking to expand the home. Maybe you're looking to put in an extension. We've got the sun highlighting in July, the area of home life, and even the preponderance of planets are all below the horizon. So you're going to be dealing a lot with immediate relationships in your environment, doing things in the first quadrant. So there's a lot of private energy for you, Aries rising, right now. So, Celeste, I love what you're talking about in terms of just taking care of yourself. When that Saturn goes retrograde, it's ruling your 10th and 11th house. So there might be something that comes up around work-related matters or maybe around career. This could be about groups, large groups. As that Saturn goes retrograde, we've got Pluto in the mix there as well. So that's just some areas of life maybe to keep an eye on as you go through this month. Wonderful. Into our Taurus rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yes, Taurus, this is a really important time for you, Taurus risings, because Uranus, which has been in your sign for about 7 years, it's been in your first house. And this is a great time to think about how much your image of yourself, what other people think of you, how you see yourself has changed. And with Venus, your chart ruler, conjunct Uranus, you may have some big awakenings about your identity, about how you view yourself, your self-esteem. Venus rules self-esteem, your relationships. So really take some time to notice on July, right around July 4th, what comes to your conscious attention. Great time for journaling with the sun and Jupiter in the third house. This could be a really wonderful time for journaling or conversations, and maybe even with a sibling or something. Third house rules siblings, about how your identity has changed, how your relationships have changed, all these sorts of things as you're wrapping up this important transit of Uranus going through your first house. It'll be back a little bit later in the year, but you may notice something big when it moves out. Yeah. And if you are single and ready to mingle, Mars is in your fifth house of dating. And yeah, so just this is a good time to remember that Neptune goes retrograde on that day. So if you meet someone new, uh, take some time. I would recommend not rushing into the bedroom. Mars rules sex, so just keep that in mind. But this could be a time where your how you perceive yourself in the outer world or at work is changing. Maybe you'll get a surprise raise or something. Somebody's going to get a surprise raise, because when Venus goes into Gemini in your second house, it's like, surprise, I've got a little more money in my pocket or something like that. Could be a possibility for some Tauruses. But yeah, I think with the North Node in your 11th house, networking with community, with friends, with organizations can bring growth. And if you want to meet someone for dating, take the action to specifically ask someone or let them know that you'd like to meet someone. That could help speed that process along.
Wonderful point, Celeste. And picking up on what you're saying, for you, Taurus rising, even in early July, your chart ruler is still very strong, still in a home sign. And especially if you've got late degrees of Taurus rising, go in and enjoy yourself, have a makeover, go and pamper yourself at a spa day. And of course, as that Venus zips along and goes into your second house, as Celeste says, there might be an opportunity for a side income or a bump in income. So that Venus might be nice there in the second house, again, which is your chart ruler. But Celeste, I really like what you're talking about with that Mars. I think for you, Taurus rising, that Mars is feeling a little bit better in your whole sign fifth house, because as it's been going through the fourth house, there might have been maybe some conflict in around home and family life. But as it gets into your fifth house of creativity and joy, if you're sports inclined, this is a great time to go out and release some energy. Eventually it's going to make a nice trine to your ascendant degree, whatever ascendant degree you have. But as Celeste is saying, maybe if you're free and single, ready to mingle, that Mars is going through the fifth house of dates, and it's all that Mars also rules your seventh house of one-on-one relations. So this might be a really nice time to go out and put energy in that area of life. What's going to be quite interesting, this is going to be a longer story. Uranus is going to dip its toes into your whole sign second house. So this might not be obvious straight away, because we're going to have Uranus dipping its toes into Gemini up until November, then come back and go through. So this is going to be a larger picture, but we might have to keep an eye out in terms of maybe any unexpected changes in resources or the way you earn income, things of that nature. And if we tie this into Saturn, which is going to go retrograde in your whole sign, 12th house, Saturn rules your ninth and your 10th house. And we've got Pluto up there. So you might have to keep an eye out on any, maybe conflicts with bosses, or people may be working at cross purposes behind the scenes, maybe making decisions that you're not comfortable with, but maybe you're hidden from those decisions. So maybe watch out for that Saturn as it goes retrograde in the 12th house. But there is some great opportunities to. I think what's going to be nice here, especially with Jupiter exalted in the third and the Sun highlighting the third house. This might be a nice month to go out in your local environment. Maybe try a new coffee shop or try a new museum that you haven't been to. This is going to be a nice time in terms of just, enjoying your local environment. Even the local pool. We're in a water sign. Maybe go and enjoy in the summertime. Maybe sit by the pool and enjoy yourself for a little bit.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. With Uranus going into the second house, there can be, you can look at the condition of Uranus in your natal chart. Are you more likely to get a little raise, or maybe will there be over time you making changes to your income, or uh, needing to conserve?
That's a great point because even though we're looking at the transits here for all Taurus risings, like everything we do, you have to hone in on your own natal chart to see what those deeper connections are. So, wonderful point. Fantastic. Okay, into our Gemini rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Well, really pay attention, Gemini rising. What do you notice when Uranus enters your first house? What, how are you awakened? What insights do you have about yourself? What This is a big deal when Uranus comes to your ascendant. So it depends what degree your Gemini rising is at, how soon you'll really feel it. But if you're paying attention, you will notice something about ways in which you are changing in some way, definitely. Um, Let's see. Oh, and Mars is in your fourth house. So there could be, with Mars in the fourth house, just be aware Mars is a planet of conflict with family or at the home. And Gemini rules siblings and children. So just be aware when just be aware to not be too detached emotionally would be something I would remind Geminis. Maybe you'll get an exciting idea about how you want to change something about yourself. If you've been feeling very anxious about all the world events or things going on in your personal life, you may notice something. It may come to your psychological, to your conscious attention that, oh my God, like my hands are shaking, or my mind's too erratic. I need to figure out how I'm going to calm my nervous system. And Mars ruling your sixth house and being pretty active at this time, there may be something that you really need to take care of your health. Take extra care with cooking in the kitchen and things like that. With Jupiter in your second house, you may get a great idea that helps you expand your income. Or this may be your focus where you're working to expand your resources or things like that. Think about, you may come to understandings about yourself where you limit or get more serious and take on a role in groups or organizations. Think about how your friendships are changing is something I would recommend for Geminis to be thinking about as you come to these awarenesses about yourself, where the planet of Uranus, which rules uniqueness, how you're different, what you want freedom from. So this is a time to really be aware if you have a long-term partner about what is going on between the two of you, how each one of you have changed, because this can be a time of separations from relationships or breakdowns or breakthroughs. So just keep to really be mindful about what's going on with your thought processes. And your chart ruler is in the third house. So Mercury and Leo, consider journaling or writing about it. And what's your part of the change in these relationships? Taking with Mercury opposite Pluto, there's a beautiful opportunity for you to do some shadow work about what's going on in your mind and your communication and how your philosophies, ninth house, are transforming and how this is changing. This next 7 years is really big in terms of your relationship with yourself and how other people perceive you, depending on what degree your rising sign is. They may be a ways away, but it's good to start being aware now.
Absolutely wonderful advice. And I would say for Gemini Rising, especially as we get deeper into July, go and treat yourself. As Celeste is saying before, if your nervous system is a bit erratic, we're going to have that Venus go through every degree in Gemini and eventually get into Cancer. So if you have a chance to go for a spa day and treat yourself, maybe a bit of a makeover, that might be a really nice time. And as Celeste is saying, that's going to be a big story when Uranus goes into your whole sign first house. Just be mindful, as Celeste is saying, what's coming up for you. This is going to be a larger story over many years, but it might be a time for radical change, maybe in terms of your appearance or how you approach other people. This is our mask that we wear. So you might see changes, may not happen straight away, but it may be a longer theme over the next couple of years. And speaking, going back to that Mars, this could be a time, it's an angular house in your fourth house. So there might be some elements of conflict with family members, maybe home life. It's interesting because my wife is a Gemini rising and she's just gone off with my in-laws to Florida with my son, and they don't see eye to eye politically. So it makes me think whether they're for a couple of weeks there. I wonder if they're going to have some argy-bargy and some arguments. I think with that Mars in the fourth house. Or as Celeste is saying, that Mars is connected to the sixth house. It might be work related. Maybe if you're feeling a bit piled up upon with Mercury going to go retrograde in the third house. Mars rules that sixth house. Maybe you've got a lot of work going on. Maybe that has some conflict with your home life. Maybe people at home want to go out and enjoy the summer, but you've still got a lot of work to do. And I think with that Mercury going retrograde, it's a good time to slow down a bit. It's your chart ruler. As that chart ruler goes retrograde, if you need to, don't be afraid to slow down. Treat yourself if you need to. As we get to the very end of the month, we're going to have eventually Venus dipping its toes into the second house. The two benefics you're going to have in the second whole sign house. That Jupiter is going to be a longer story for the best part of a year. So as Celeste saying, this could mean many different things. It could be opportunities to have extra income coming through and maybe a pay raise, things of that nature. We've got the North Node in the 10th house, highlighting the 10th house of career. So these are just different things to keep an eye on as you go through the month.
Absolutely. And with Venus going to a great point, Callum, about Venus going through the first house. And if you're single, you could have a meet cute somewhere where you're both reaching for the same item at the grocery store and eyes lock and you're off to the races.
I love that. Absolutely wonderful. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think for you, Gemini Rising, that definitely could be a fun month. Wonderful. Okay, into our Cancer Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Oh, so Cancer rising. I'm a Cancer rising. Well, the first thing uh, is Jupiter is in your first house. And this could be, hopefully, I mean, literally the day after Jupiter went into Cancer as a Cancer rising, I was thinking about all my blessings and the good things in life and feeling thankful. I was just feeling, and I felt like my nervous system has really calmed down a lot from all of this craziness. This was before the latest craziness. But anyway, so you may be feeling more abundant, more at home in yourself, more confident, more blessed. What are your bigger goals? Are you going to take steps in order to achieve them? Jupiter in your first house square Saturn in your 10th house. Saturn going through your 10th house can be a time of where you're putting a lot of energy and effort into your work and it's crystallizing what you want to bring forth. Now, actions, if you're being a little lazy at work, your boss could be on you. Yeah, there can be like status and reputational changes, but it's often noted as a time of achievement for many people where you put in the work and the effort. Luck is on your side with Jupiter in your first house. If you have career goals, this is the time to be going for it with this next year where you have Jupiter in your first house. Now, Jupiter makes everything bigger, so just be mindful about your intake. If you've been like myself doing some emotional eating, I mean, literally days after Jupiter went into Cancer, I tried to put on a pair of jeans. Well, I got into them, but they were very tight. So the physical body can literally be expanding, and just be aware of comfort eating and things like that. With Mars in your third house, be really recognize your communication patterns. This gives you an opportunity to think about like when you're communicating, are you being too nitpicky or precise, or is the information you're sharing or critical or about yourself, your thought processes too? So it's anxiety in your mind. This is something that you can be thinking about what's going on. Be a real opportunity to be aware, and it can bring some healing for you. Yeah, and Venus going through your 12th house, it'll be interesting, and then Uranus in there, like how your dream life changes. So that I would recommend having a dream journal because you could be getting insights in your sleep about how your subconscious mind could be letting your conscious mind know some things. Absolutely. And with the South Node going through your third house, this gives you an opportunity to really understand your thought patterns and your communications so that you can really positively make some changes if they're needed.
Wonderful advice, Celeste. I was literally thinking about dream journaling before you said it. So I love that. I think that's such great advice. Yeah, to write down your dreams. They might be kind of strange, especially if with Uranus dipping its toes in there, might be just out of the blue or erratic, but certainly write those down. I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. What I like for you, Cancer Rising, I would say particularly the first week of July. This would have been the end of June as well, but I like the idea of long distance vacations here. We've got this wonderfully exalted Jupiter is ruling your ninth house. So overseas travel if you can, or long distance travel. We've got the North Node highlighting the ninth house as well. So if you have any plans, any trips planned, I think this is going to be a beautiful time. The word of caution, I agree with Celeste, as she's saying, especially if you've got early degrees of Cancer Rising, maybe you overdo it with the sweets or the candy or the drink. All of those matters where you can expand the body. So yes, I agree with that. Maybe being mindful of overdoing things. But I think what's nice to tie this in as well, we've had that Venus. Maybe you've been on a trip in June, but the first week of July, we've got the tail end of that Venus in the whole sign 11th house. So this is a great time if you're overseas with friends or colleagues, that people that you really enjoy being around. This is going to be a great time to really indulge and enjoy yourself with friends. And the only thing that might be, niggling at you, as Celeste is saying, we've got Mars going through the third house. So maybe emails start piling up if when you get back on vacation, you've got maybe a lot of work to go through, a lot of communicating to do, maybe sending a lot of emails, things of that nature. But yeah, I like this for you, Cancer Rising. With Saturn and Neptune going retrograde in the 10th house, this can be both skilled and unskilled. Maybe as Celeste is saying, you're looking to crystallize some area of your career. Maybe you become a sense of authority in any given field, or maybe you get a promotion in terms of leading, maybe a company or something that you're doing. On the negative side, you might maybe come into conflict with bosses. But again, you're gonna have to look at your chart, your natal chart, and see what other connections are happening for you in your chart. But yeah, absolutely wonderful. Fantastic. Okay, into our Leo rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Leo rising with the sun in your 12th house, it's a beautiful time. And Jupiter there to take a retreat, to do something in solitude could be a lovely thing to do. Yeah, there's the sun is shining behind the scenes. This should be a time of rest for you, Leo, where you're Leo rising, where you're preparing for the sun coming into your first house. So I would say rest before that happens because then you're going to get like this light of vitality coming towards your first house. Yeah. Watch out for overspending on luxury goods or things like that. Leo tends to like the nice things in life. I would recommend blowing the bank with Venus and Uranus meeting on July 4th. So right around that, just be mindful, especially if you're hanging out with a group or something and somebody's trying to tell you, let's go, let's plan this big vacation. You see Saturn in your ninth house, uh, it could be a problem when the bill comes due. So just be mindful to be consider your expenditures, I would recommend. Yeah. Uranus is going into your 11th house, so there may be some changes in friend groups, uh, and things like that, or awakenings around organizations or groups or people. So keep that in mind. Pluto's been in your seventh house for a while. So the new moon in Leo, where it's opposite, the new moon is exactly opposite Pluto, is a great time to really pay attention to what's going on with your one-on-one relationships, doing some shadow work, thinking about the things you'd rather disown. Don't push them aside. They're coming up to your conscious attention for action taking about and how do you want your relationships to be more loving, grounded, um, pleasant, calm, or exciting, whatever you want. Just think about what you're doing around relationships and paying close attention.
Wonderful points and great advice. And I agree with you. I think for you, Leo Rising, especially early in the month, this could be a time where you're a bit more behind the scenes. So if you are, as Celeste is saying, certainly take a rest before it becomes your season, because that sun is eventually going to highlight your first house. You're going to be more prominent. So early July, maybe, take a respite, maybe go behind the scenes. This is a great time to go and meditate somewhere if you're that way inclined. And I think as well, this is going to be a great time as you get deeper into July, when we have the sun highlighting your first house. We can have Venus transiting your 11th house. This is going to be a great time for getting around with group activities, group friends, having some enjoyment, especially as we get deeper into July. And I would agree with Celeste in terms of being a little bit cautious about overspending as we look at that Mars transiting through the whole sign second house. Again, as Celeste is saying, maybe just be careful of overspending. That might be an issue, and especially with the South Node going through the whole sign second house as well. Just being mindful of maybe overspending. Now, the nice thing is, I think with Saturn getting out of that whole sign eighth house, that might clear things up a little bit more. We've got an exalted Jupiter ruling the eighth house. So, in terms of shared resources or the ability to borrow money from banks, things of that nature might ease up, because we've had that Saturn for you for a very long time in that whole sign. I've got a friend, Leo Rising, who tried to borrow money from a bank a year or two ago, and I was like, I don't think this is going to go well. It's not just the Saturn, there's many other things that you have to look at, but at least that Saturn eases up. But I like what you're saying, Celeste, about relationships. That Pluto is going to be a huge story over the next 20 years about, who's got the power in relationships? Do you have the power, or are you giving your power away? This month, we're going to have Saturn station retrograde. Saturn rules the seventh house. So I would certainly keep in mind what Celeste is saying about all those matters concerning relationships and one-on-one relationships of that matter. Oh, and of course, as Celeste is saying, we've got the Uranus dipping its toes into your whole sign 11th house. So this could, if you're involved in maybe studying astrology, this could be a great time for just, unexpected events in terms of new groups and new relationships with people in new communities that you might expect. So this is a great time if you are involved in astrology to start working with larger groups and societies at this time.
Yeah, and consider coming to the Kepler Symposium in
Great shout.
Niagara
Exactly.
Falls. You're going to be there,
Absolutely.
aren't you?
I am. We're going to be there. And Celeste, you're giving a speech as well. That's right. A
Yes, yes.
presentation.
So we get to
Wonderful.
meet in person. I'm so excited.
I can't wait. Absolutely wonderful. And so Leo Risings, we hope to see you there. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, into our Virgo Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Virgo risings, Mars is in your first house, stimulating you. So what actions are you taking? Hopefully you're feeling energized a bit. Mars energizes. Watch out for having conflict with people, especially around the time that Mars meets the South Node in your first house. Take extra care of your health and vitality around that time. Watch out, because Virgo rules health. So just be extra mindful around that time. With the Sun and Jupiter in your 11th house, you can have growth and connection and emotional bounty in work with friends or organizations. This could be a time where you shine in a group setting, so keep that in mind. With Uranus going into your 10th house, this can be a change in your work. So really be mindful with Mars in your first house. Like if your boss tells you they think you're being combative, that could be pay attention, because that could be a symbology of this transit. So just be mindful what actions you take so that they don't send you down the drain, especially at work. You may get ideas on how you want to how you want to change your career in some kind of ways, or bright ideas around that, or there could be something where you find out, our team is doing something totally different than you thought you were going to do, or something like that. It's the energy. Try not to let it take it personally or get all agitated about it, is what I would recommend with that. And Venus will be going through your 10th house. So there could be positive changes available for you at work, or you could be offered something. Venus brings blessings, but when that Venus, really notice what's going on with you at work, out in the world, with family, with your partnerships, with the Venus square Mars, because it's like what you desire and the actions you want to take could come into some kind of conflict, or some kind of choice point can be an issue. So take care of your health so you don't have to miss out on something that could be great at work. Is coming to my mind. But yeah, this is a great time to think about, what are your future goals? Where do you want to be in your career in a few years? What's your 5-year plan?
Absolutely. I think wonderful points and wonderful advice. And I got that health picture as well for you, Virgo Rising. Of course, we've got Mars transiting through the first house. Especially pay attention if it's coming close to your ascendant degree. I would certainly watch out for, cooking in the kitchen with sharp knives, things of that nature, and just, small accidents that may come around. Or on the skilled side, as Celeste is saying, it might just be a burst of energy and you feel more active, which is going to be nice. The thing that brings in the health component as well is that, we've got Pluto in the whole sign sixth house for the next 20 years. So that's a bigger story. But when Saturn goes retrograde, Saturn rules the sixth house. So I'm just thinking about just being mindful of any health concerns, if you have any, and just keeping an eye on that. We've got your chart ruler, which is going to be turning retrograde as well in the whole sign 12th house. So there's a few indications for me about a health picture. We've got the South Node going through the first house as well. So just be mindful of any health concerns that you might have. If you ever need to change your diet or if you need to change things up, maybe start a new exercise regime might be helpful during this time. But as Celeste is saying, I think the positives here is certainly we're going to have Venus that's been making a nice connection to your first house for a time in June and even the first week of July. That Venus goes through the 10th house, so you might be well fond of in your career. This might be a great time to be giving a presentation, things of that nature. We've got the planets above the horizon, the very visible. And if we combine that with the other benefic, Jupiter is going to be in your 11th house for the best part of a year. So this is an excellent time to expand your friendship groups, community gatherings. If you're involved in any things like protests or things of that nature, this might be an area of life that's expanded for you. So I think that's gonna be a really nice picture. So just to reiterate what Celeste is saying, certainly pay attention to your health and your routines, and that way you can enjoy more of these public events that might be coming up for you. Wonderful. Okay, into our Libra rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Libra risings, there may be some work-life balance issues that are coming up for you with the Jupiter in your 10th house. There can be expansion of opportunities at work, and the sun is shining here. But Saturn and Neptune are in your 7th house. So this could cause a little bit of conflict, or there can be issues where you have to put extra emphasis in your relationships despite what's going on at work. So just keep awareness of Saturn moving through your 7th house. That could be a time where your partner is needing more of your attention, or your relationship feels like a little bit more like work. Or be honest with yourself. You may be feeling a little disillusioned and burdened by some of your relationships. It doesn't necessarily need to be your love relationship, but some one-on-one relationships may be changing, even with like a best friend, and you may need to have some kind of conversation. Yeah. And oh, there could be opportunities to go on some kind of exciting trip or moving or something like that. Yeah, moving a long distance could be something that comes up with Uranus going into your 9th house. Deciding to study something new. Maybe you decide, I'm going to study astrology. Maybe you decide, I'm going to go to Niagara Falls so that I can join the Kepler Symposium and be part of this amazing event where there's going to be community connection and education. Yeah, a really great time to consider self-undoing, with Mars going through your 12th house. If you're doing anything that impacts your health, like if you love sugar, Libra rising, Venus rules Libra. Maybe you want to think about cutting down on it or doing something health-wise where you're taking action to separate yourself from something that's really not good for your physical body. It could be something that's going on. Or maybe your partner is having some health stuff with Saturn being in your 7th house and Mars in the 12th, because that's their 6th house. And maybe you're needing to take them to doctor's appointments or things like that. Could be something that's coming up. But you will be very visible at work with the sun going through your 10th house. So I wouldn't be dipping out thinking nobody's going to notice, because you could get attention. But Jupiter's there, so hopefully it'll just all be good attention.
Wonderful point, Celeste. And speaking as a Libra rising, you're very on point for what you're speaking about here. I think for us, Libra risings on the positive end or the potential for positivity, of course, we've had our chart ruler in strong condition and fixed earth. She's going to now move into the whole sign ninth house. So eventually that Venus is going to make a nice connection with our ascendant. So as Celeste is saying, this is a great time maybe for a bit of a pleasure trip, or if you're interested in studying something new, this is going to be a great time. Of course, we've got that Uranus picture dipping its toes into the ninth house. Now, this is going to be a longer story because Uranus goes into Gemini up until November, then starts making its way back. But eventually, this is going to be a long 7 year story. So, as Celeste is saying, maybe some of us may be thinking about suddenly moving overseas or having opportunities. This could be connected to work. Or if not, maybe you are thinking about studying something new, studying astrology, studying a different type of philosophy. This is going to be a really great time to do anything along those lines. On the shadow side, as Celeste has been saying, that Mars is going through our whole sign 12th house. So we might have some issues, maybe some hidden enemies here, or self-undoing, as Celeste has been talking about, if we're maybe overdoing things. Not only that, that Mars rules our seventh house, and with our seventh house, we've got the Saturn and the Neptune turning retrograde. So we might have, and we have that Saturn rule in the fourth and fifth house. So we might have some issues in terms of our relationships. If we have been married for a long time, there may be some issues with the partner. If you're trying to do that, as Celeste is saying, that life-work balance with relationships as well as getting on with your work. Children could be involved here as well. So just being mindful as us Libra Rising, we do like to keep a balance in our life. You know, that's the goal for Libra Rising. We don't always achieve it, but we try and strive for balance in our lives. And this is something we're going to have to try and keep in mind as we go through July. As Celeste is saying, we've got that wonderful Jupiter exalted in our 10th house. This is going to be there for the best part of a year. So if you're looking to, expand areas of your career, we've got the sun highlighting there this month. So as Celeste is saying, I don't think we can go and hide and shriek somewhere. We can't, we're going to be visible. So we have to make the best of that. But the two benefics above the horizon, that's going to be great in terms of any visibility if you're out in public in any way, which is going to be very nice. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, into our Scorpio rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Scorpio rising, I like to use the traditional chart ruler. So Mars, your chart ruler is in the 11th house of hopes and dreams, groups and organizations. So what actions, like, do you have a systematic plan for what you want to do for your hopes and dreams? This can be a good time to put some things into actions. Watch out for conflict whenever Mars is involved, or being too critical with Virgo. That's something you can think about. With the Sun and Jupiter in your ninth house, a great time for expansion in terms of, like, if you wanted to start a podcast or doing something broadcasting as a ninth house topic. Are you considering like publishing something? This could be something that you're thinking about, or studying something. Yeah, or going on a trip. There's some big ninth house themes for you. With Pluto at the bottom of your chart, there's some things that are going on with family where there could be some changes or transformations that with Saturn and Neptune in your sixth house, there can be like burdens or excessive needs to be of service. Like someone could have an older parent where you're taking on more responsibility that's impacting your routines and rituals. It's a really important time for you to be mindful of your health with Saturn in your sixth house, because the sixth house is associated with health issues. So just keep that in mind, working on being as healthy as you can. And with Uranus going into your eighth house, you could get some kind of something unexpected could be coming up around an inheritance, or like hopefully your parents, and if you're a parent, really make sure your wishes are outlined in your will and things like that, so that the children, Gemini, aren't just having like disruptions between their relationships, fighting over. I hear these stories all the time with my clients, and conflicts about their parents' will and testament if it's not outlined really clearly. So think about that sort of thing. Yeah. With the North Node in your fifth house, if you're single, this could be a great time to do more enjoyment of fun and dating, and if you have children, spending time with your children or investing in them.
Absolutely wonderful
Hobbies.
advice. Yeah, and great points. And I think for you, Scorpio rising, with your chart ruler going through the 11th house, on the shadow side, you may come into conflict with maybe friendship groups. Maybe if you're involved in a committee, you might see some upheavals, especially with the South Node going through the whole sign 11th as well. Or it just might be mean on the positive end, making putting more effort into being involved in groups and committees. I mean, if you're involved in any sort of protests or things of that nature, this Mars is going to go, okay, let's go. Let's take our groups together. Let's put energy in this area of life. What I really like for you, Scorpio rising, as Celeste has talked about, we've got the sun highlighting the ninth house. We're going to have Jupiter exalted for the best part of a year in your ninth house. It's going to eventually make a nice connection with your ascendant degree, whatever ascendant degree you have. But yes, as Celeste is saying, if you're looking to expand your areas of, maybe you're looking to study something new, maybe this is higher education or podcasting, as Celeste has said. Maybe this is a nice pleasure trip overseas where you literally expand your horizons to a different country. This is going to be a really nice time in terms of that. You've got that Jupiter rule in the fifth house. So, as Celeste is saying, with the North Node mix in there as well, this could be a great time for, if you're free and single, to maybe meet someone, go on a lot of dates. Might be a nice time. If you are in a relationship, that Venus is going to make its way through the whole sign eighth house. So your partner might have a little bit of a bump in income or surprise raise, things of that nature with Venus going through. But as Celeste is saying, that Uranus is going to be a long story, dipping its toes into the whole sign eighth house. So there could be issues around inheritances. And I would agree with Celeste in terms of making sure, if you are involved in anything of that nature, that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted in terms of that. Because with Uranus, you always have to expect the unexpected. So if things aren't written in stone, with things of that nature, things might surprise you and may upset you. But of course, this is going to be a longer picture over the best part of 7 years. So this is something that might not be quite obvious straight away. I would agree with Celeste in terms of, with Saturn and Neptune stationed in retrograde in the sixth house, this is a great time to maybe restructure your work life, your day-to-day life. If things are a bit chaotic, put things in order. If you have a health regime that maybe you need to work out, this is a great time to do that as well, because that Saturn Neptune is going to be, again, another long story for you for the next couple of years. Are you Scorpio rising? Wonderful. Okay, into our Sagittarius rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yes, Sagittarius, I hope you are feeling like life has taken on a new shine. With Jupiter has moved from Gemini, where it's in detriment, into Cancer, where it's exalted. So, are you feeling this? Are you feeling a little more emotionally grounded, optimistic, all these kinds of things? Now, the Sun and Jupiter is going through your eighth house over the next next well, the Jupiter's going through your eighth house over the next year. And as your chart ruler, it being exalted in the house of debt, maybe you'll pay off some debt. Maybe you'll get some kind of financial um, abundance that allows you to pay off debt. You could get an inheritance unexpectedly, or a tax refund. Your partner could have a raise as well. That are some things that could be coming up. Really be mindful of what's going on with your relationships, with Uranus going into your seventh house. There could be some awakenings or a sense of upheaval, or maybe your partner is very stressed at this point, or maybe there's something exciting going on for them. If it's interesting. Saturn and Neptune in your fifth house, for some reason there may be less time for just fun and games where you're having to be serious about some things, or a lot of work on your plate with Mars in the 10th. You're taking a lot of actions at work. Yeah. Yeah, just be mindful of what is going on there. What are your children need you more? You maybe just had a child, and like there's a lot of work involved in the emotional care of children.
Wonderful point. I really like what you said, Celeste, about let us know, Sagittarius Rising, in the comments if you felt that shift with your chart ruler being in detriment for so long, and now it's dipped its toes into Cancer. It's exalted, it's expansive. So let us know in the comments if you felt this shift. And of course, that Jupiter is going to highlight the eighth house for the best part of a year. So it could mean many different manifestations. You could be talking about abundance, there could be an inheritance involved. If not, it could be to do with shared resources. Maybe the partner gets a huge raise or things of that nature. That Jupiter exalted in the eighth should be a great time if you're looking maybe to borrow money to work on the home, things of that nature. That should be, depending on what else is going on in your chart, that could be a yes from a bank if you needed to borrow or things of that nature. The sun is obviously highlighting that area of life for a lot of July. But as we get deeper into July, the sun is going to highlight the ninth house along with Mercury up there. So maybe you might be interested in a short pleasure trip with the ninth house, maybe overseas. You might enjoy yourself to a certain degree. The only word of caution, I think, what Celeste is talking about, we have Mars angular in your chart. And anytime a planet is angular in one of your houses, it's usually quite loud. And that Mars, depending what your ascendant degree is eventually going to be rubbing shoulders and squaring your ascendant. So just be mindful if this on the positive end can create a lot of energy and activity, but on the shadow side, you might just be careful of any sharp instruments or cooking at home, things of that nature as that Mars rubs up against the your ascendant. Or this also could manifest in terms of maybe a little bit of conflict with maybe bosses or people at work, especially when you couple this with the South Node going through the 10th house as well. There may be some issues surrounding career or things that you're trying to do at this time. And also in terms of, as Celeste has been talking about, if you've got any children, maybe you became a new parent. So Saturn there is talking about responsibilities and commitments and things of that nature. With the Saturn and Neptune there, it might not be as easy to have as much pleasure as you usually do, but I think with that Jupiter, that might help out. With that Venus going deeper into the month, Venus is going to transit your seventh house. This might be a nice time to plan a dinner date with your partner. Go and do something fun. You know, we've got Venus in mutable air. It likes a bit of novelty. It likes a bit of change. So maybe try and do something new with a partner. Try something fun and exciting. And of course, to add to that, we're going to have Uranus dipping its toes into your seventh house. This is going to be a longer picture over a period of time, but eventually you might see shake-ups in relationships. That might be shake-ups with your partner, one-on-one business relationships, things of that nature. So that Uranus being angular for a long time, that's something you're going to have to pay attention to for a longer picture for you for Sagittarius risings. Wonderful. Okay, into our Capricorn rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts.
Yeah, so the Sun and Jupiter are in your seventh house. So this could be expansion in the area of relationships. You and your partner could feel like you're more emotionally connected. Hopefully they're feeling good about something, or theirs expanding in some way. Hopefully not just their belt buckle, but um, they're going to be in the spotlight at least while the sun is in your seventh house. Yes, they are. Um, There may be more responsibilities at home with Saturn and Neptune, or for parents in the fourth house. So just be aware of that. And you may be experiencing transformation of your income. Now, this has been going on for a while where Pluto's been in your second house, but that is something to just be aware of with there's the power, like, I just got an image of a power couple coming together to really make some big changes in expansion of wealth, is something that is possible. So if you have a business partnership, this could be a good year of growth for you two together. It's possible. With Mars in the ninth house, just be mindful of your higher there may be some changes, or like something may happen in the collective that causes you to change your higher belief systems about some certain things, is what I see with that.
Wonderful point. I think for you, Capricorn Rising, I've got this sense if you're planning in July for a vacation, I've got the sense that a staycation might be more beneficial than maybe going further overseas. We've got that Mars. I mean, depending if you've got a day or a night chart, the night chart might be a little bit better for the Mars. But we've got Mars going through the ninth house, coupled with the South Node in the ninth house. So I've just got a feeling maybe long distance journeys or long distance places to other countries might not be as fruitful as, say, maybe a staycation, stay in your local environment. We've got a wonderfully exalted Jupiter ruling the third house. So, talking about local environments, I mean, Jupiter's going to be there for the best part of a year. But I feel like if you're planning on a vacation, I feel like local areas might be more beneficial than going further overseas. But of course, you've got to look at your own natal chart to see the rest of the connections. Some issues I might see here in terms of your chart ruler. We've got Saturn in fall. It's in an angular house, so that's very loud and it's very prominent. We've got close with Neptune here. And with the chart ruler going retrograde, there might be some issues in the home. Maybe, I don't want to say things that might, break down to a certain degree, but there might be a lot of energy pushed here. There might be a lot of frustrations in terms of the home life. So just be mindful of that, especially with your chart ruler there, and try and work out maybe any family issues that come up. And on the positive end, this might be a time for that Saturn to really think about reevaluating your responsibilities and your commitments, especially when they pertain to your home life. And I think it's a good thing to think things through, especially with Mercury going retrograde as well this month. What I really love, which Celeste has been talking about, I think you're going to get a lot of support with one-on-one relations, whether that's platonic or romantic. Jupiter, again, the best part of the year. You've got the sun highlight in the seventh house. So you might get some support from your one-on-one relationships, especially the first week of July, where we've still got Venus in her home sign and fixed Earth, making nice connections in the fifth house, a great time to go on a fun date. Things of that nature, I think, is going to be really helpful for you. So I would say ultimately, if home life is getting a bit cumbersome and things of that nature, take a staycation, maybe a local environment, go somewhere local and do that with a close friend or a partner, I think, for you. And the big picture, we've got Uranus going into your whole sign sixth house. So this is going to be a big picture over the next 7 years. Uranus is only dipping its toes in until November in the whole sign sixth house. So this might be eventually a radical change in your day-to-day work routines. You may be looking at radically revising any health regimes that you have, things of that nature. But that Uranus is going to be a bigger picture over a longer period of time for you, Capricorn Rising. Wonderful. Okay, into our Aquarius Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so for Aquarius risings, Saturn, your chart ruler, is in the third house. And with the transformation of the collective and seeing, Aquarius can be very, very concerned with social issues. It's a social sign. Watch out for letting yourself get too pessimistic, would be what I remind you, with Saturn and Neptune in your third house of your your mind and your communication. Can you keep hope alive? Can you keep can you think the world can come to a better place? It's just something to keep in mind. Watch out for conflicts with your love partner. If they're telling you, please, like what you're saying, or they're talking to you about communication with Mercury being in your seventh house and being ready to go retrograde. Yeah, just be mindful of how you speak to your partner, or there could be conflict between yourselves. With the Sun and Jupiter going through your sixth house, it's a great time to have more ease and flow in your routines and rituals. Maybe you'll decide to start some new meditation practice or something that really just improves your feelings of vitality and things like that. Could be something that's going on. Yeah, watch out for any debt considerations. You may decide, oh, with Uranus getting ready to go through your fifth house, taking up a new hobby. Maybe you're deciding to have children or becoming awakened to something about kids. Maybe your kids are going off to college and you're going to be, or moving out and you're going to be an empty nester. There's a story there potentially about pleasure and how it's changing. Are you a surprise? Somebody throws you a surprise party for some reason, even though it's not your birthday, or you get a surprise proposal.
I love that. Wonderful point. I think for the financial picture for you, Aquarius Rising, it can be a bit of a mixed bag. What's interesting, maybe on the shadow side, is we have the malefic, transiting through the eighth house. We've got the North Node that's going to be there for a time. So in terms of finances, there might be more trouble in terms of shared resources. Maybe it's the partner that's having issues, or maybe you'll have a bit of conflict in terms of, what you're both spending, where the finances, where the money is going. But the good side and the flip side of that is we have an exalted Jupiter for the best part of the year, rule in the second house. We've got the North Node in the second house. So for you personally, you might be better in terms of expanding your income revenues, things of that nature. And with the Jupiter in the sixth house, we're talking about the areas of work. So you might be finding that, you possibly get a raise, things of that nature. We've got the Sun highlight in the sixth house. Now, this might not have anything to do with finances, as Celeste is talking about. This could just be looking at, expanding your day-to-day activities, but in a healthy way, looking at the day-to-day routines that you do. You can have your chart ruler turn retrograde along with Neptune in the third house. So I would agree with Celeste. Be mindful in how you're communicating with other people to bring that Mercury retrograde into the picture. Maybe this is conversations you're having with a partner. Maybe you're having to revise certain things, especially if there's any conflict in terms of shared resources. When that Mercury goes retrograde, maybe you're having that one-to-one conversation either with a romantic partner, or this could be a business relationship, one-on-one business relationship when we're tying the eighth house of shared resources. So those might be themes that come up for you. I think what's going to be nice for you as we get deeper into the month, we're going to have Venus transit through your whole sign fifth house. Eventually, it's going to make a nice connection to your ascendant degree, wherever that is. So this might be a nice time for some creative pleasure. Maybe you're working on a project. Maybe it's time to spend some quality time with your children, if you have any. Or it might be just a nice time to go on a date, things of that nature. If you're free and single, might be a nice time with Venus going through there to enjoy yourself, have a bit of pleasure in life if other things in life are a bit cumbersome at this time. Wonderful. Okay, last but not least, our Pisces rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yes, Pisces rising. The North Node is in your first house. I hope this is helping you feel more abundant. And since Jupiter went into your fifth house, the fifth house is the house of good fortune. So I hope you are feeling something lovely going on, or feeling like having Saturn out of your first house. Have you noticed your just physical vitality? Are you feeling, have you felt like a weight has come off of your shoulders over the last several weeks? And ooh, life the looks just a little more rosy. I hope that this is what you're experiencing now. Saturn and Neptune going through your second house. If you're like towards the end of your career, maybe you're thinking about retirement. Be mindful about expenditure. Saturn and Neptune in the second house can suggest that you're being more intentional about your money and how you're spending it. Watch out for conflict with your love partner with Mars in the seventh house. I think that's the biggest thing. Watch out for conflict around with your love partner. Um, or, yeah, maybe you're meeting someone new if you're single and ready to mingle, or you're having discussions about children. Could be something that's going on. Maybe to have more children with Jupiter there. You're likely to be more fertile, so be mindful of that. If you're not ready for more children, be extra careful with birth control with Jupiter that expands things going through the fifth house of children.
Wonderful advice. I'm really happy for Pisces Rising, especially what you've been through in the last couple of years with Saturn going through the first house and all the other planetary conditions. And what I love for you, again, is this wonderfully exalted Jupiter. Eventually it's going to make a nice connection to your ascendant degree, wherever that might be. This is going to be a year-long picture. So if you've not felt it straight away, then give it time. Then hopefully that comes through. So your chart ruler being wonderfully exalted. We're in the fifth house. So yes, as Celeste is saying, if you're looking to expand your family, this is certainly a time where this would be a great time to do that. If you're not, as Celeste is saying, be mindful of, preventions, birth control, things of that nature. But this is going to be a great best part of the year in terms of creative pleasure. If you've got any projects on the go, or just essentially just having good times, going out, enjoying yourself, fifth house activities. If you're sports inclined, maybe you expand your horizons in taking up a new sport. And things of this nature, this can manifest in many different ways. And certainly for this month, the sun is highlighting that area of creativity and pleasure and joy. So certainly enjoy that this month. Yeah, only like Celeste is saying, word of caution is, we've got Mars, the malefic transit in the seventh house. We've got the South Node in there as well. So you might see maybe some conflict with partners. This can be romantic partners, it could be business partners, it could be even open enemies. Maybe you rub somebody the wrong way with your joy and positivity. So for some reason, you get into conflict with somebody. So keep an eye on that Mars, especially as you see that Mars, see your opposition to your ascendant degree. Be mindful of, if you're cooking at home and with sharp knives, things of that nature. Anytime a malefic squares or opposes your ascendant, just be mindful of any health and body issues, things of that nature. We're going to have Venus transit through your fourth house, so this might be a pleasant time in terms of enjoying your home life. If you're looking to do a small renovation, maybe you're looking to decorate, maybe you're looking to decorate the living room in a new way, put a bit of paint up in the kitchen, things of that nature. This is going to be a great month to do things of that nature. Of course, the bigger picture here is we're going to have Uranus go into the whole sign fourth house. Now, Uranus is only going to dip its toes into your whole sign fourth house until November and then come back. But eventually, this is going to be a longer 7-year story, or 7 years or so. So this could mean many different things. It could be disruptions in the home life. You could be, unexpectedly moving houses, things of this nature. But that is something, if it doesn't happen straight away, something to keep an eye out for in the next couple of years, I would say. Wonderful. Well, Celeste, thank you so much as always. It's always a pleasure to have you on with your brilliant insights, your wisdoms, and your accuracy in your readings. Absolutely incredible. I often go back to the videos we do and just see how on point you always are with these conversations. So thank you so much for doing the month of July with us. And Celeste is one of my favorite social media astrology personalities out there. Wonderful content Celeste produce on Instagram, all the social medias. So certainly I'll leave the links below this video in the description so you can go and follow Celeste in other areas, and absolutely brilliantly celestial insights, all of that nature. And Celeste, you've got a lot going on this
I
year.
do.
So
I want to teach more classes, but I'm just a little overwhelmed right now, but it's all good. It's a delight, and I always love talking to you with these and your brilliant insights. So thank you so much, Callum, for being a fantastic host.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again.